We all know the picture of the perfect American small town. It's the place where neighbors know your name, doors stay unlocked, and a deeply ingrained communal trust makes everyone feel safe. On a quiet Sunday evening in June 1993, that picture shattered for the residents of Windsor, North Carolina. At closing time, an armed man entered the local Bay Low grocery store, tied up the manager, a clerk, and the cleaning crew, and robbed the safe. He stacked his captives on top of each other, in piles of 2, and systematically shot them. When his gun jammed, he grabbed a knife and kept going. 3 people died, others were severely wounded. The extreme brutality of the crime proved that hyper-violent anomalies can, and do, breach these supposedly safe havens. The physical act of violence eventually passes. The long-term survival of the town depends on the collective psychological reaction that follows, how a closed society processes a breach of its core values. To survive a threat to their identity, these towns deploy radical psychological defense mechanisms. They prioritize their social equilibrium and their collective peace of mind over objective truth or justice. Take an isolated stretch of highway passing through the cornfields of Iowa. This kind of geographical desolation creates a closed-loop society where the people inside the loop rely almost entirely on each other. In 2002, an out-of-town couple driving through a burned-up section of this farmland witnessed a horrifying scene. Right off the road, they saw an older local man carrying a young, curly-haired blonde boy. As they drove past, they watched the man throw the child down an old, dry well. Terrified, the couple sped to the nearest town and rushed into a diner to call 911. But when they described the man, who the locals immediately identified as Farmer Art Landry, the mood shifted. The local police arrived and immediately began to question the couple's eyesight, suggesting optical illusions or tricks of the light through the smoke. Then, Art Landry himself pulled into the diner's parking lot. He aggressively confronted the couple and presented a child he claimed to be his grandson. But the boy standing in front of them had closely cropped dark hair, completely different from the blonde child they saw at the well. When the couple insisted this was the wrong kid, the county sheriff threatened to arrest them for public disturbance if they didn't leave town immediately. By neutralizing the witnesses and invalidating their reality, the town effectively protected its internal equilibrium. They operated as a communal immune system, choosing to preserve a neighbor's reputation rather than investigate a potential murder. Sometimes a community doesn't deny the violence, they rewrite it. In Medicine Bow, Wyoming, a Vietnam veteran named Bob Barnes was universally feared. Parents warned their children to stay away from his trailer, and locals treated him like a monster because, according to town lore, he had murdered a high school boy in cold blood and somehow gotten away with it. Decades later, the truth emerged. The teenager Bob shot had actually been out by a lake, deeply intoxicated, attempting to assault an unconscious, overdosed little girl with a knife. Bob intervened, shot the attacker to save the child, and carried her back to town to get help. The police cleared Bob entirely, but the town had a massive problem. Admitting Bob was a hero meant admitting that a group of their own local teenagers, including the friends of the dead boy, were complicit in a violent, predatory assault on a child. So they distorted the reality. Over the years, the teenagers, their friends, and eventually an entire generation agreed to uphold a lie. The truth was too socially destructive to live alongside, so they turned a savior into a murderer. By projecting their own communal sins onto a designated, isolated boogeyman, the residents of Medicine Bow successfully quarantined their collective guilt. They preserved their self-image as good people at the cost of one man's life and legacy. In rural Bart Township, Pennsylvania, the Old Order Amish live in extreme isolation. They maintain a rigid, pre-modern separation from what they call the English world, creating a highly interdependent social structure. On October 2, 2006, a local milkman who serviced many of the nearby farms barricaded the doors of a one-room Amish schoolhouse. He brought guns, chains, and lumber, ultimately taking the lives of 5 young girls and wounding several others before taking his own life. Within minutes, this quiet, closed-off community was flooded with the modern world. Sirens, heavily armed state troopers, ambulances, and a swarm of national media outlets breached the rural roads, creating an overwhelming spectacle. The Amish reaction was jarring to outsiders. Within hours of the massacre, community members reached out to the shooter's devastated father to offer total forgiveness. In the following days, many of them attended the murderer's funeral to show support for his widow and children. While this response is deeply rooted in their religious beliefs, sociologically, it functions as a mechanism of radical ideological purging. In a society that relies entirely on communal cooperation to survive, cyclical hatred and revenge are fatal. By enforcing immediate, mandatory forgiveness, the community amputates the emotional trauma. They cut out the anger before it can fester and destroy their highly interdependent way of life. A small town is a fragile ecosystem. For the social contract to hold, every member must agree to a shared reality, even when that reality is a fabrication designed to bury a traumatic truth. Whether a town is aggressively silencing a witness in Iowa or mandating immediate forgiveness for a killer in Pennsylvania, the objective is identical. These aren't moral choices, they are tactical ones designed to keep the group from collapsing. Every one of these mechanisms serves to prevent a rupture from becoming permanent. This instinct comes with immense collateral damage. The pursuit of justice for victims and the sanity of those trying to tell the truth are willingly discarded. They are simply the price of communal peace. The killers eventually disappear, but the community remains. Long after the crime is over, the people next door will continue to maintain the silence required to keep their world intact.